So greetings everyone and welcome to the second session of Discourses with Dr. Vladimir Yatsenko. Before we start the proceedings, we'll have a moment's silence, please. So the second session, Dr. Vladimir will be looking at integral health regarding the Vedas, the Upanishads, Gita and Tantra. So it's a formidable subject that's ahead of us. So over to you, Vladimir, and I hope you all enjoy this session very much.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk on these profound subjects. And today I wanted to make a link between all these great syntheses of knowledge, as Sri Aurobindo calls them. That was the Veda, Upanishads, Gita is another great synthesis on which Sri Aurobindo built his integral yoga, as you know. Purna yoga of the Gita became integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo, to which he added the fourth part, which is the yoga of self-perfection. So karma yoga, bhakti yoga and jnana yoga are taken from the Gita into the integral yoga. And then yoga of self-perfection is the fourth one, which is making it integral yoga. So it's basically Gita, yeah. So, and then Tantra. Tantra was the attempt to take Vedic knowledge and to apply it to our new mentality, to the mental structure of consciousness, and we can see it. Tantra itself is calling it, is called as they call themselves the Veda for Kali Yuga. So basically, it's quite self-explanatory. So I prepared some PowerPoint presentation. Today I will be making the link between the Veda and Upanishads. According to Sri Aurobindo, the Upanishads were the attempt to recapture the knowledge of the Veda in a new fashion. And even more so to create a new knowledge, as it were, or to share or to reveal this knowledge in a totally new framework, because the mentality has changed, the language has changed, the structure of consciousness has changed. Upanishads are standing at the brink of the mental structure of consciousness. So they are using already mental language and try to systematize the knowledge of the Veda in the mental framework. So if you look at these four syntheses, Vedas, Upanishads, Gita and Tantra, you can see the gaps between. Yes, the Vedas are from 6 to 4000 at least BC. Upanishads, the huge gap between them. Upanishads start from 1500 onwards. The oldest Upanishads, such as Isha Upanishad, for example, is a part of Samhita, Vajrayana Samhita, and so on. These are the oldest Upanishads, which begin from approximately 1500 BC. And then Gita, it's a very approximate time I'm giving here, 500 BC, the time of Mahabharata. Could be much earlier. Nowadays especially they speak about earlier times, that the Kali Yuga started 3000 BC plus. So, and Gita could be written or composed in that time or around that time. And Tantras are closer to our time. They also, Puranas and Tantras, we put them into one section. Actually, it's earlier, from 200 AD, but I put 500 AD. No, that's basically these four great syntheses coming closer to what we know as integral yoga. It will be the fifth one we could write here in the history. So Sri Aurobindo speaks of the unknown and unknowable. This is the often quoted passage from the Life Divine. The unknown is not the unknowable. It needs not remain the unknown for us. Unless we choose ignorance or persist in our first limitations. For to all things that are not unknowable, all things in the universe, there correspond in that universe faculties which can take cognizance of them, and in man, the macrocosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. We may choose not to develop them where they are partially developed. We may discourage and impose on them a kind of atrophy, but fundamentally, all possible knowledge is knowledge within the power of humanity. This is actually good news for us, because everything what is revealed, manifested in the world, has the consciousness behind it, which is the faculties of which we can develop, and by that we can know the universe. Yes? Everything can be known if we choose so. So this word faculties we will be using all the time, and we will come to it again. So when we move to the Upanishads from the Vedas, in the Vedas we deal with the great universal powers or forces of consciousness, luminous, and they are all universal. They are hardly ever individual. So when the rishis speak about Indra, they speak about the intuitive mind acting upon us and upon rishi. So it's always us, we bring to us, and so on. So, and these godheads are of universal nature. They have names, but these names are kind of misleading. We need to look deeper into the etymology of each name to really discover their functionality. These are the functions of one divinity. And they are named, and these names become the personalities. These personalities are invoked and invited for the transformation of our being. But then the shift took place towards the mental structure, and there the gods of the Upanishads have been supposed to be a figure for the senses. And indriyas in this case. So seeing, hearing, touching, speaking, these indriyas, not only jnanendriyas, but also karmendriyas. But although they act in the senses, the gods, they act in the senses, interestingly, they are yet much more than that. They represent the divine power in its great and fundamental cosmic functionings, whether in man or in mind and life and matter in general. They are not the functionings themselves, but something of the divine, which is essential to their operation and its immediate possessor and cause. So, in the Kena Upanishad, Sri Aurobindo will be speaking about sense of our sense, sight of our sight, hearing of our hearing, word of our word. So there is another layer behind the senses, behind the faculties, we will call them faculties, of consciousness, which represent the divine. The faculties represent the divine in activity, and these are supposed to be the gods of the Upanishads. And interestingly enough, if we open Upanishads, just take the books of Upanishads, open wherever and put finger in, you will be surprised that you will be pointing to some of these faculties. It will be either a speech or mind or prana, breath, life force, feelings, emotions, or any of these faculties. Annam, pranam, chakshuk, shrotram, mano, vacham, iti. This is the definition of 6 major faculties. We will come to them again, which represent Brahman. Brahman is manifested through them and by them in the world. And if we look at ourselves, we will see that our bodies embody all these major faculties. By the way, our bodies would not come into existence if these faculties would not be necessary or would not function. Our bodies exist only for the faculties to function, it seems. Our body is needed to see, to hear, to touch, to speak, to act, to breathe, to live, to feel. If all these faculties would not be embodied in the body is absolutely not necessary. And this is amazing. Body is the embodiment of these spiritual faculties. Acting in us, we take it for granted. We think body is the body, and there we have some eyeballs. It's not like that. Body is the part of this spiritual enterprise where the faculties are embodied in it. Yeah? So that's what Sri Aurobindo says here. If you want to clarify something or say something, you have to just switch on microphone and speak. Yeah? I'm welcoming this always, so don't feel that you are interrupting me. So on the faculties, Sri Aurobindo says something interesting here, and we have to look into it from also later philosophy, from the point of view of Western philosophy. Later we will do this exercise. There are also 3 major streams of cognition. This is my words: seeing, hearing, and touch, and 3 basic cognitive accesses to reality. In Vedic terminology, for the truth consciousness, these are words of Sri Aurobindo, there are corresponding faculties: drishti, shruti, viveka. The direct vision of the truth, the direct hearing of its word, we will come to the words, and the direct discrimination of the right. Seeing, hearing, and touch. This discrimination will become what we know as thought. Truth comes to us as a light and a voice. Light is seeing and voice is hearing. You notice that? Drishti and shruti in a way. Compelling a change of thought, that viveka, the third. Imposing a new discernment of ourselves and all around us. Truth of thought, that viveka, which was formed by seeing and hearing, creates truth of vision. We are coming back to kind of reflective vision. We see something which is already implied in the vision before through the discernment. And truth of vision forms the truth of being. And out of truth of being, satyam, flows naturally truth of emotion, will, and action. This is indeed the central notion of the Veda. We can discuss this. This is an amazing statement in The Secret of the Veda by Sri Aurobindo. It actually implies several metaphors in Nietzsche's kind of language. Nietzsche speaks about metaphors. Yes, the first impression onto our nervous system of the image of things, which we create a metaphor within ourselves. Then we create a symbol for it in the language. And that language symbol we are dealing with. We are not dealing with reality. We are dealing with the second metaphor or second reflection. And then match it with the reality. But here Sri Aurobindo is more direct. He doesn't speak about metaphors. He speaks about the process of creation of our own existence here through the faculties. And this is amazing. So I'm continuing. So in pre-Sankhyaik paradigm, before Sankhya, in the Upanishads, we had 6 major faculties, which I already mentioned. It is Annam Pranam, Chakshuh Shrotram, Mano Vacham. So Manas and Vak, Vandva, constantly mentioned in the Upanishads. Chakshuh and Shrotram, another, seeing and hearing. And Prana and Apana, or Prana and Annam. That means breathing in and breathing out, or breathing in and the body. Interestingly, that breathing out and the body are somehow associated. So breathing out is actually embodying. And we can see this archetypal way of seeing in the religions where, for example, the god creates Adam from the clay and then he breathes into him his breath. So he breathes out, he gives out the breath into the clay. So this breathing into is actually embodying. So here they are, these 3 major dvandvas, pairs. So Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotram, Prana and Apana. I think you know these terms, yes? I don't need to always translate them. There was an objection before, please translate these terms. So Manas is mind, Vak is speech, Chakshuh is seeing, Shrotram is hearing, Prana is breathing in, or simply life force. We will associate it with feelings, emotions, sensations. And finally, Apana, breathing out, or Annam. Yeah. Oh, yes. Annam, Pranam, Chakshuh, Shrotram, Manovacham. This is the definition by Taittiriya. Instead of Apana, there is Annam. In other definitions, there will be Prana and Apana. Or Prana and Annam. Yeah, it's either or. And in that sense, they are kind of suggestive that Apana, breathing out, is of that kind, that it is embodiment of the pranic energy. The prana is embodied in the body, that gives life force into the body through breathing out. And it's quite interesting that even physiologically, when we breathe out, we charge our system with oxygen. Not when we breathe in. First we breathe in, we keep it, and then when we breathe out, our blood is charged with life energy. So to say, it is literally the embodiment of life force. So, the self and the Lord. This is the major topic of today, of this first half. This is from Sri Aurobindo's writing on the Kena Upanishad. And when we have gone on, thus eliminating and analyzing all forms into the fundamental entities of cosmos, we shall find that these fundamental entities are really only 2, ourselves and the gods. Now, if we take the gods as the faculties of consciousness, representing consciousness in the action, and then there is the self, the being, which is embodying these faculties, then these are the 2 fundamentals. There's nothing more, actually, truly. So this is the passage from the Kena, Yadasya tvam yadasya deveshu athanumimansya mevate manye viditam. Well, but what then of Brahman is myself, and what of the Brahman is in the gods? The answer is evident. So the whole chapter will be about this answer. What is gods and what is the self? So I am a representation in cosmos, says Sri Aurobindo. This is Sri Aurobindo's text. But for all purposes of cosmos, a real representation of the self. And the gods are a representation in the cosmos, a real representation, since without them the cosmos could not continue, of the Lord. The one supreme self is the essentiality of all these individual existences. The one supreme Lord is the Godhead in the gods. Now we have to come to this Lord or Godhead in the gods, Purusha. Atman is self and Purusha is the Lord. There are only two realities, the self and the Lord. Atman is the being, and Purusha is consciousness of that being. Now here I have to come to the explanation. This is very important to understand for the Indian philosophy. The difference between Atman and Purusha. Usually late in post-Vedic period they are kind of identical. Purusha and Atman are the same. They are used interchangeably, but truly speaking, the difference is important. So to understand the difference, we have to come to the Aitareya Upanishad, the myth of creation, the sacrifice of Purusha. The self, Atma va idam eka agra asit, nanyat kinchana mishat saikshata lokano srejayiti, saiman lokana srejata. So the self indeed was alone at the beginning. Nothing else was moving there. He thought or willed the same. Let me create the worlds. So Atman, the self, the being was there. And he created these worlds. He cast them out, as it were, out of himself. Then he thought, these are the worlds. I'm not going into all the details. I skip the whole passage in between. What are the worlds? Because the worlds were also an important passage, but it will take a long time to go into everything. So then when the worlds were created, the upper ocean, the lower ocean, the earth, the heaven, the space in between, these are the worlds were created. He thought, these are the worlds, let me create the masters of the worlds, or the dwellers in the worlds. Having taken Purusha from the waters, from the lower waters, I add lower waters, important element here. He gave him a shape. Saikshata imenu lokaha, these are the worlds. Lokapalanno srejayiti, may I create the dwellers, the protectors of the worlds. Sodbhyaiva purusham samudhritya murchat. And he pulled out the Purusha from the inconscient waters and heated him up. It's something similar to what God did in the Bible. From the clay which was lifeless, he created a shape and then he gave it life. Heated it up means he concentrated on it in his consciousness force. Amazing that just now came to my mind that it is corresponding to what is in the Bible. Most probably that shows that there was pre-Vedic, pre-Chaldean one tradition. And what happened when he heated him up? Atman, heated him up, the Purusha which was created, and by concentrating on him his consciousness force, and thus his mouth of Purusha, broke forth as an egg, and from his mouth speech broke forth, and from the speech fire, and so, one by one. So tam abhyatapattasya abhitaptasya mukham nirabhidiyatayathandam mukhadvak. From the mouth first came speech. Yeah? The word was first. Vachogni, from the speech Agni came into being. Nasike nirabhiditam, his nostrils broke forth. Nasikabhyam pranah, from his nostrils breath, life force. Pranadvayu, from the prana, from the breath, vayu, wind was born, air was born. Akshini nirabhidyetam, from his eyes broke forth. Akshibhyam chakshuhu, from the eyes seeing. Chakshusha adityah, from the seeing, the sun was born, the light. Karnau nirabhidyetam, his ears broke forth. Karnabhyam shrotram, from the ears, the hearing. Shrotra dishaha, from the hearing, the space came into being. The dishaha, the directions. Now you can see that the light, the space, all came because he wanted to see, to hear, and not other way around. Not that there was space and he started to hear, not that there was light and he started to see. Because of his seeing of universal Purusha, light comes into existence. And because of him hearing, the space was born to hear. So they are the consequence of the faculties, of the universal faculty. So one by one, then he's tasya hridayam narabhidyata. I don't put everything into one text. His heart broke forth. Hridayan mano manasaschandrama. From the heart, mind. From the mind, moon comes into being. Tasya nabhir narabhidyata. His navel broke forth. That's important. Nabhya apana panon mrityu. He's from the navel, the apana, breathing out. From breathing out, death came into existence. And then the explanation of Aitareya will be that the death was the only way how the spirit could embody itself in matter. Tasya shishnam nirabhidata shishnat reto retasa apaha. His procreatory organ broke forth from his procreatory organ, the retas, the flood, the seed, retasa apah, and from the seed, the lower waters from which Purusha was pulled. There are many intuitive passages here which we cannot dwell on for the lack of time, but what I want to emphasize in this case, that these faculties of seeing, hearing, thinking, speaking, they are all coming from Purusha. Universal Purusha. They were first born, they broke forth, created the habitat or the context in which they can manifest. And then what happened in the second stage, they all plunged into the lower ocean or into the inconscient ocean. You know? And from there, from the inconscient ocean, they cried to him, saying that we don't have our habitat. We need a habitat where to live, where to dwell. The faculties. This is the sacrifice of Purusha. How he was sacrificed that his faculties came out of him into the inconscient ocean. And from there, they cried to him, we need the place to live, the place to enjoy as we did in you. And so he brought to them the cow first. They said it's well done, but it's not enough for us. He brought the horse. They said it's well done, but it's not enough for us. And then he brought them Purusha, man. And they said it's well done. And he told them, now you enter him as your habitat. And so Agni became Agnirvag Bhutva Mukham Pravishat. Agni became the word and entered his mouth. Vayu prano bhutva nasike pravishat. The wind became the breath and entered his nostrils. Aditya chakshur bhutva kshini pravishat. Aditya, the sun, the light, became the sight and entered his eyes. And so he recomposed the individual Purusha from the universal faculties in the evolutionary movement. This is the Aitareya's vision of creation of the world, which is amazing. And if we think of it really deeply, we will find that we all share the same faculties, all of us. So we share the universal faculties, though we are individual beings, but we all have sight, hearing, word. All of us, we share the faculties of universal Purusha. Not only human beings, but also animals and plants. And that amoeba, that first amoeba which was moving, which didn't have any organs, but tried to push, to communicate, to speak, all the faculties are already packed there, but they are not yet having instruments, organs. And so in the evolutionary process, the organs are built, the eyeballs, the ears, the brain, the whole nervous system is coming slowly into existence to allow these faculties to function within the material creation in time and space. Makes sense, yeah? So this is all Upanishadic vision. So these are the major faculties here. You can see them, thought. I put them into two triangles. It's just my kind of composition for the sake of some kind of beautiful presentation. So you can see that the word, these Vak, Prana and Chakshuh, or the fire, wind and sun, Aditya, these three are the three fires which have to be united in the sacrifice. If we unite the speech, the word, the breath, the life force, and the seeing or the vision of the mind, or on the one side there is a mind, on the other side there is a word, you can see. So this is also an interesting thing, that Vak is the active faculty, whereas Shrotram is perceptive. Yes, Shrotram, hearing, is perceiving. Seeing is perceiving. Hearing is perceiving. Word is acting. Mind is, thought is acting, active. So perceptive and active. Two active, two perceptive. Quite amazing. So Shrotram is, when we listen, we stop talking, yeah? We are deeply listening. But when we want to actively vibrate, yeah, that hearing, then we speak, then we vibrate. Yeah? So these are active and passive or perceptive faculties of the same. Yeah? So speech and hearing, word and hearing is on one side, and seeing and thinking on the other. Now notice, when we are seeing, we are also perceptive. We stop doing anything. We are totally concentrated when we are looking very carefully. But when we look actively, as it were, how can you look actively? Or not actively look, but see actively, let us say. Then it is the thought, imagination, formation of some form. When we form the form, we do this with the faculty of seeing. Sri Aurobindo speaks about the thought of two kinds. Yes, there are thoughts which are coming to us as images, and these are the images on the left side, and come to us with the words. And that is on the right side. So on the right side we have comprehensive, cognition. On the left side, manas and chakshus, we have apprehensive cognition. Recognition of the form. On the left side, the form, rupam. On the right side, the nama, the name. The name and the form. This is the ancient knowledge of the Brahmanas, which actually Upanishads inherited. So by name and form, Brahman came into existence. Why this table is important? Because Brahman in the Upanishads and in the Brahmanas is considered to be on 4 legs. And these are the 4 legs or 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are manas and vak, chakshuh and shrotra. These are the 4 legs by which Brahman, the spirit, can come into existence. And he comes as prana, as a life force, which embodies itself in matter. So for Brahman to embody itself in matter, these 4 are essential: seeing and hearing, speaking and thinking. We deconstruct these. We don't speak about them in terms of only human faculties. Yeah.
Hello, Vladimir.
Yes.
Can I make a question?
Yes.
Where we can point buddhi, the intellect, could be in the center.
Buddhi is altogether from the Sankhyaic paradigm. This is pre-Sankhyaic, and I'm happy that I mentioned it before, otherwise I would have to explain where is ahamkara here, where is everything. Why this is not the manas of the Sankhya. It is the manas of the pre-Sankhyaik vision, and this is an important thing. Good you asked. This manas is one of the faculties. He is not the synthesizer of other indriyas as it is in Sankhya. In Sankhya, manas is the 6th sense, which is holding in the mental structure of consciousness. Manas has a different role to play. It's a kind of a leader or the guide for all other faculties. He dominates others. In this system, in this vision, it is one of the faculties. Yeah. So if you bring buddhi, and you may ask me any other question from phenomenology, so they do not fit immediately unless we deeply understand what we are dealing with. Yeah. So I will come to buddhi and I will come to the Sankhya in the second half of my presentation of today.
And then in this description is a consciousness in self.
Yes.
Is someone is conscious of this construction?
Someone, yes. We are all built out of this construction. This construction.
When we are pointed, if we are the conscience, where is the conscience in this diagram?
This is consciousness.
Okay.
Consciousness is 6 faculties. Now, yes, maybe I should mention this, that Upanishads do not speak about consciousness as abstraction. Now, when you say consciousness, you are coming from that buddhi thinking, from the Sankhya thinking, from the phenomenology, from everything what we learned today about consciousness. For us, it is a concept, an abstraction, and also some kind of awareness, which is not really defined by anything. But here, it's very concrete. In the Upanishads are not dealing with consciousness as abstraction or concept. They are dealing with it in concrete faculties. Yeah? All of these are the consciousness acting. Consciousness may act as the self-expression, as the word. Consciousness may act as a comprehensive cognition, as a hearing. Consciousness may act as the focusing and holding the image of things as thought. or as the seeing, as apprehensive cognition. It may act also as the life force in terms of emotions, feelings, and sensations. And it may act also as a consciousness of the body, self-awareness. I am aware of myself as different from others, or that is different from me. So that recognition of the body, separate body, cognizing it as viveka, discerning the separate shape, form, and meaning, because on one side there is comprehensive cognition, that is meaning, on the other is apprehensive, that is form. Form and meaning are cognized, then I recognize the body, and this is the embodiment. So this is another philosophical paradigm, pre-Samkhyaik, pre-mental, so that means where the mind is not yet dominating anyone. It is one of the faculties, the faculty of focusing the consciousness. I'm dealing with quite a difficult task to lead you through the different paradigms, and I try to keep interconnectedness. Yes, I want to us at the end to have a sense that this developmental paradigm keeps all the ancient paradigms intact or efficient enough, yes, for us to be able to use it, even in the mental structure. So because mental structure is very critical, and it will remove all this and will say that this is not like that. It's not, the Vedas disappeared, the Upanishads disappeared. So now we have only Samkhya and Yoga and Buddhi and Manas and Indriyas, senses turned outside. This is what Samkhya is doing. So it is narrowing down the whole spectrum and activities of consciousness. I want to widen them and to keep those pre-Samkhyaik paradigms still in our use. I know it is a very ambitious project, but still I'm very attracted to this proposition. So I'm just sharing with you these thoughts, and if you have other thoughts or would like to comment on it, you are most welcome. Now, these six, the question was, where is the consciousness? Consciousness is behind all these six. Sri Aurobindo will speak about the mind of our mind. This is Brahman. The thought of our thought, or the hearing of our hearing, the word of our word, the seeing of our seeing, this breath of our breath is the Brahman. There is behind it, there is another consciousness, or the same consciousness acting through these faculties. Now, these six are met on each level, and this is important because we have koshas. We have Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha. We have 5 bodies and even more. So they are described in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So Annamaya Purusha or Annamaya Matma, the Annamaya Atma, self. So we have 5 selves, and on each level of these 5 selves we have these 6. This is important. So it's like a cut of the tree. You can imagine we take and cut the tree, and we see inside the tree here. This is the cut of the tree, the slice of the tree. We see all of them on each level. They will be represented. All 6 of them coming from the most physical form. Physical, where there are organs like eyeballs, ears, brain, all these tongue activities, the carriers of the activities of these faculties, to prana, pranamaya, atma or purusha, where they are also present, all of them. On the pranic level, on the level of the vital world, we can see, hear, speak, express ourselves. We can feel. We can, yes, We can be there. We have there a body, the pranic body. On the manas level, on the manomaya atma, we also can see, hear, speak, think, be in the body. We have a specific mental body. So on each of these levels, until the supramental Vijnana Maya Purusha, all of them, all the faculties are present. And at the end of our course, I will give you an overview how Sri Aurobindo deals with these faculties. In Savitri, that is our day 6, we will take Savitri and examine how these faculties are presented in Savitri. It's amazing. He speaks about them from the highest transcendental level. And on the transcendental level, the seeing will be drishti, the revelation, the direct knowledge of the truth. In Vedic terms, it is ila, the stream of revelation. Saraswati is the stream of the direct comprehension, hearing. So the word, Saraswati is the goddess of the word, but on the highest level. So the word is arriving from the transcendental, the word paravak, then Pashyantivak, then Madhyama, then Vaikhari. On all of these kosha levels, there is the word, there is the sight, there is the hearing, there is the life force, there is the form, there is the being there, the self. There are 5 selves, and all of them, as Taittiriya would say, in the same form as the physical body. It has the same formation in the form of Purusha, that Purusha which was sacrificed, whose eyes broke forth, whose mouth broke forth. He opened up the faculties, and these faculties are maintaining all these levels one after the other, penetrating them, holding them together, making them coherent. That's why our inner life and outer life correspond, because the seeing, the indriyas are infinite. It goes in to the highest supreme, and from highest supreme to the most physical. And the same with the word, and the same with... So you can imagine how beautiful the system is. It's really comprehensive and coherent. Okay, I will stop here for a second for your observations, because I took already nearly an hour. Otherwise, my second half will be delayed. If you have some questions or want to share something, please go ahead. I even can stop sharing. I give you some time to come to thoughts.
Vladimir,
Yes.
you spoke about the difference between, before we went on to the slide of the sacrifice of this Purusha, you spoke that there was the difference between Purusha and Atman.
Right.
So that wasn't very clear.
Wasn't clear. Oh, very good. Thank you for asking this. I kind of missed that point. Yes, on the fly. Purusha and Atman, the difference between the two. So we need to define the difference between Brahman, Atman, and Purusha. These are the 3 major terms which we meet all the time in the Indian philosophy. So all of them in different texts are identified. It is said that Atman is Brahman, Brahman is Atman. But still, there is a difference. And there is a difference between Atman and Purusha, and still they are, you can say, Annamaya Purusha or Annamaya Mahatma. So this, the material Atman self or material Purusha. Sri Aurobindo gives the definition. One is the Lord, that means one is the consciousness, who has faculties. Faculties are Purusha's faculties. Yes, and the consciousness is within Purusha. Atman is the self, the being. Yeah? And he needed Purusha to embody himself. Atman was not embodied before Purusha was there. Without Purusha, Atman cannot be embodied. There is no way that Atman could be embodied in time and space without Purusha, without his faculties of apprehensive and comprehensive cognition. These create space, form and name, the meaning and the form in time and space. If these would not be activated, Atman as the being would be always transcendental. So that's why we have this idea of the sacrifice of Purusha. What is sacrifice? Is that his faculties are really building up the worlds, you know, from within. And building up for whom? For Atman. Atman will be embodied through Purusha. So these are the subtle differences which are important. That's why we have this Purusha sacrifice, Sukta of Purusha sacrifice. Interestingly, that nobody is asking why Purusha was sacrificed. What did he do wrong to be sacrificed? No, he didn't do anything wrong. He was needed for the Atman to embody himself in time and space. Yeah? So it is the projection of this universal Purusha with all his faculties into the midst of this inconscient ocean and rebuilding in the evolutionary process all the individual forms which embody these universal faculties. We all individuals share universal faculties of that one universal Purusha. That's why we can communicate. We can deal with one world as coherent world because we share the same faculties. We see the same colors, sometimes same, sometimes different.
So the Atman that you just spoke about, would it be the same as the psychic being?
Psychic being, yes. Interesting kind of. Yes, Atman is the unborn self. It's the self which is always there. Now, the difference between Brahman and Atman is also important. Brahman is existence. We spoke about this most probably already. Existence, consciousness, bliss, truth, mind, vital, prana, and annam, matter. This is Brahman. But Atman is the existent, conscious, blissful, mental being, vital being, physical being. So the self is when Brahman becomes self-aware, then he is Atman. Self-awareness of Brahman is Atman. Or do not know how to put it, because we are dealing with the categories before Purusha, before the faculties were even projected. So how could you speak about it by the faculties of Purusha, about that which was there before Purusha came into being? Yes, please, Suzanne. Yeah, I see your hand. You just can say, yeah.
Okay. No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you for that explanation of the sacrifice of Purusha. I I was so moved by it. And it was interesting that you said, what did he do to make that sacrifice? I just felt, I guess, moved to tears because of the gift, or anyway, it was beautiful. The love, it was like love. It was just,
Thank you.
it was
This is so
astounding. So
nice.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this. You don't know how true you are in this case. Sri Aurobindo says that Purusha sacrifice was known in the ancient tradition as the Holocaust of the Divine Mother. Mother gave herself to this world. She gave herself totally with this force of love. And then when you said you feel love, I really am very, very much appreciating this, because it's really true feeling. It can be done only with love. Only with love somebody can plunge into the darkness of inconscient, to bring it back to its self-awareness.
True. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great. If no more of these observations or some, then I go into the second half. Yeah. I don't want to overload, of course, but what can we do? We have much to cover. Now I am moving. Yeah.
Sorry. Just one thing. When you say the gods and the devas came down, you now mention the asuras, and I suppose are included in this coming down to the consciousness, isn't it?
Asuras were there already. They are the elder brothers of the gods, as we know them. Yeah? They were the first gods who fell down, who created that habitat. So this sacrifice of Purusha is the second stage of creation. The first stage was the habitat, when the self, may I create the worlds. Yeah? And so these worlds became the unconscious habitat, which was populated by the Purusha's faculties, which were supposed to bring these unconscious habitat back to its self-awareness. And these are the first Asuric greater gods. In the mother's story, we have these two stages of creation. Yes, first emanations of consciousness in light, bliss, truth, and life fell gradually into their opposites. Consciousness in light turned into darkness, bliss into suffering, truth into falsehood, and life into death. And then there was found in the Supreme another force of love. This is interesting because, coming back to the Susan's comment, which plunged into the darkness of the inconscient to bring back these fallen emanations. And this is the process of redemption, or process of the sacrifice. So what is happening, interesting, how sacrifice is described by the mother, is that the divine gives itself to the darkness, which is impossible to imagine, that the light, the full bliss will plunge into the darkness of inconscient and into the suffering and falsehood and death will really do that. Yeah? But it did it. For what reason? To, as Mother says, to give an example to those fallen emanations to be able to give themselves to the divine back. So they are slowly learning from this great sacrifice of love of the Divine Mother, learning from it, and slowly start giving themselves to the divine, finding joy of returning to the truth. This is on the psychological side, the explanation of this Holocaust of the Divine Mother. Or Purusha sacrifice, in more technical terms. So you can see that these faculties are very fundamental for consciousness, for our operation in the world, for redemption, for everything. So these faculties are actually the mediators. They are mediating the highest consciousness to the surface. They can bring the influence of the inner light to the surface. It is through them that the spirits, the spiritual consciousness can reach out to the surface. Without them, it cannot come to the surface. So here I'm coming to the second half of my presentation, and this is the passage from the Upanishads by Sri Aurobindo. In the ancient conception of the universe, our material existence is formed from the 5 elemental states of matter: the ethereal, aerial, fiery, liquid, and solid. These are 5 Panchamahabhutani, yes? Ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Everything that has to do with our material existence is called the elemental, the bhuta. In this material, there move non-material powers, says Sri Aurobindo, manifesting through the mind force and life force that work upon matter. And these are called gods, or devas, as we speak about them. These are the faculties which are working in the mental and vital realms, indriyas, in the Samkhya. Everything that has to do with the working of non-material in us is called adhidaiva, that which pertains to the gods. So adhidaiva is about our consciousness and faculties, about the gods. But above the non-material powers, containing them, greater than they, is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us is called the spiritual, Adhyatma. So if I make a picture, it would be something like this. Adhyatma in the center, it is our true being, consciousness being together. Then there is this involved consciousness, adhidaiva, which is kind of emanating from the self. And then adhibhuta, the periphery of our consciousness, elemental, which is embodying itself in material form. So our consciousness, adhidaiva, this yellow circle, can be turned either without, looking at the world without, at the forms outside, perceiving everything which is happening outside, or it can look within. So, and here we have a big fundamental problem, psychological problem of human beings. We cannot do both. We can look either within or without. So when we look without,
I want to make a proposition, Vladimir. Maybe if we change the order, maybe if we put Adhyatma in the blue round and Adhibhuta in the center, like more matter manifested, more condensed, then we can see both.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, why not?
Maybe then we can see in both directions in the same time.
You can do that. And by the way, this is only a sketch. Yes, this is not the truth. This is the finger pointing to the truth. Yeah?
The metaphor. So metaphor.
Yeah, you can change it and make it opposite, and it will be as the same true as this one. Yeah? So here, what is interesting is that this inbuilt circle, this yellow, is inbuilt in what? It is inbuilt in the self. And here Siegfried is totally right, that if you look at the Adhyatma is reaching to Adhibhuta if we remove Adhidaiva. If we remove Adhidaiva, there will be only one circle, which will be one Atma, self. It is all happening within the self. But this self can be viewed in two different views. By the consciousness involved, by that second stage, by that plunge of the faculties into the darkness, it can be viewed either outwardly or inwardly. So we can view the self either inwardly, what is within, or outwardly, what is without. So we can direct our faculties either without or within. And it's amazing that we cannot be doing both. So when we look within, we close our eyes, we stop moving, we don't move, we sit quietly in the lotus position, stop breathing even, stop thinking even, because we want to reach to the deep, the innermost being. To reach to the innermost, we have to stop activities of Adhidaiva altogether, become totally attentive, as Sri Aurobindo says, passively conscious of the. Otherwise, we will never reach to the innermost. The moment we start activities outside, we lose the inner perception. Just try to move your hands. Sri Aurobindo speaks about karmendriyas. The moment karmendriyas are activated, we lose the inner perception. Amazing. That's why in the yoga they develop this particular formation of sitting still, stop breathing, stop thinking, in order to reach into the inner realm.
It's funny how it works both ways all the time. I mean, like you can go in, you say I go inside, but then you also say I reach outside, like the higher is outside you. But it works both ways. It's all true, which is really fascinating.
Yes, it's very, very nice what you said. Yes, we are going outside, we are reaching outside, and you're reaching inside. You are somewhere here who can reach, who has the self within and the self without, as it were. And so we can, so what Upanishads were proposing is amazing. So how to resolve this thing, how to be true on the surface, how to know the surface, how to make this adhibhuta be charged with the inner consciousness. So how to make the sacrifice, sacred outer being, that means charged with the inner presence. And for that we need these faculties. We need them to be the bridges between the inner and the outer. How can they be bridges? Because when we turn within, we lose without. When we turn without, we lose within. So we lose all the time, one of them. As in Savitri, Satyavan says, when I found nature, I lost God. When I found God, I lost the sight of nature. So there is this dilemma, psychological dilemma. When we are active, we cannot be totally perceptive. When we are perceptive, we lose our activity, we become inactive outside. So how to be active and perceptive at the same time? This is the fundamental question. So what do you think? Because I'm already overtaking. So this is a good point to discuss things. What do you think? How can we be active and perceptive at the same time?
So what if you create an Adhidaiva outside the Adhibhuta and then an Adhyatma outside that again? And then the Adhidaiva would always be the bridge from the Adhibhuta to the Adhyatma, either way. But you need to go through the Adhidaiva, which is the plunge of the light into the dark. So you have to use it both ways, because it doesn't even feel like the same going inside. It seems to be different Adhidaiva than the going outside as such.
You're acting as demiurge now. You're making everything upside down and saying this would be the way. It's very nice, yeah. Well, if I would be a demiurge, I would do it also. I would really create that way. But if I can't do it, if I am what I am already, I have the inner being and the outer being, and the consciousness in between kind of trying to, sometimes it looks within, and then the outer consciousness falls asleep. You lay down. All people in meditation, they start snoring. Why? Because the outer being is totally inactive, and the only way to be totally inactive is to sleep. Yeah? So it falls asleep, but the inner being is there. Or you are active outside, and inwardly you just don't remember a thing. You're so preoccupied with the energies outside. So Sri Aurobindo actually brings this topic deeper even. Yes, Snehal. Yes, Snehal wants to say something.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I understood that you're starting a new thing, but this is in the this is to answer the previous question that you asked, that how can we be two things at the same time? And I feel that in my limited knowledge, I don't see anything wrong in being one or the other. You know, it's like I see it like a wave, which is necessary. It's always if you are in one state or the other, I feel it's you need there to be, and you know, it's like,
no, we are not judging here that it is wrong. We are saying how to make it that it could be both, that when I am active outside, I am also aware of the inner truth. That means that my outside has changed to the extent that it becomes transparent enough to receive the inner presence of the spirit. That means I am aware of what is happening. It's very, very difficult to achieve. Yeah, this achievement we are speaking that we are like this. I totally agree with you. There is nothing wrong about it. It is so. Yes.
But to be conscious when you're active is what integral yoga is all about. Surely.
Yes.
It's. I mean, to keep that connection with the psychic being at all times.
I agree.
And when we're active, it's what karma yoga is all about. You know, it's the essence of yoga, integral yoga. Surely. Because if we're not conscious when we're active, then we're not truly living, are we?
You answered all the questions with one word: psychic being. Psychic being is the bridge, actually.
Yes, I think so.
Absolutely.
Vladimir, isn't this what Gita also says? The witness consciousness, what James is talking about? You take the sakshi out, and like whatever happens outside, you're aware of it, but there's a detachment.
Yeah, Gita speaks about this Purusha and Prakriti in Sankhyaik terms, which we will come to, Sankhya. And interestingly, it develops the Purusha's consciousness through Sakshi first, and then Anumanta, and then Bharta, and then Bhokta. You know, so in a way, it incorporates also the psychic action of Bhokta at the end, but through psychic, the Atman can be Bhokta of this world. Definitely, there is no other way to be the enjoyer of everything Prakriti does. Yes, that enjoyment, to receive the enjoyment of the activities of Prakriti, means that the spirit already reached to the surface. It's kind of. Yes, Joel and Snehal, they are hands. I do not know whether it is from before. Go ahead.
Mine was before. I don't know how to put it down. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Joel, go ahead.
So when you talk about this feeling, well, I'm calling it a feeling of when the two connect, the Adhyatma and the Adibhuta. I got this image of these movies that you see when the the let's say hero who learned for so long to in like a monastery or one of those places to connect the two, and he goes into this, or she goes into this state where she's so connected with what happens that they disconnect from the body because it is moving the body. I mean, I'm just trying to see, that is maybe what, and that would be so funny that we make movies about that, no?
Yeah, and there's another kind of word for this, to go into the flow, to the extent that you lose yourself totally in this consciousness of the flow, as it were. These are the kind of images of that what is to happen. Can you imagine that you will be totally aware of everything what is happening outside and be active at the same time? In the Isha Upanishad, they speak about Vidya and Avidya. Vidya is the full knowledge, full awareness, and Avidya is a partial awareness in time and space. Like skills, for example. You play football. I give this example always. You play football, you know how to kick the ball very well. And so you're kicking the ball. But when you're kicking the ball, you're not aware of the whole universe or you and others in the highest sense of the knowledge. But can you imagine you are aware at the same time what football it could be? It would be a total joy, ananda, bliss, in every way. So if these two are combined, and that is the idea, then we get the consciousness of the Lord, as Isha says. Vidyam cha vidyam chayastad vedo bhayam saha avidyayam rityam tirtva vidyayam ritam ashnute. So by avidya, the one who knows both vidya and avidya together, by avidya he is moving through the field of death, that is our life, and by vidya he enjoys immortality at the same time. So this is unimaginable yet consciousness. So we can have some ideas of the flow, of losing oneself totally in concentration. These are good examples for us to imagine. But truly speaking, to be totally aware and to be totally present in the activity, this is the ideal of karma yoga. That's why Mother wanted karma yoga to be the ideal for Aurobindo. She says you have to take activity in Aurobindo and do it as yoga, as the means of connecting to your inner self through activities, which is quite difficult because of our karmendriyas. As Sri Aurobindo says, karmendriyas are those panis in the Vedas which steal our light. So the moment we start being active with hands, feet, speech, we lose that inner perception, that inner poise. It's just automatically how it happens, because these karmendriyas, they grew up from the inconscient. They are these organs of action upon the outer world. And they need the inner perception, the inner light. So every time the inner light reveals itself, comes to us, they snatch it and hide it in the subconscious cave. It's their treasures. Those treasures give them the legitimate status to act, as it were. They are charged with the truth, and they know that they can be truly acting, so to say, but they don't know the value of those treasures. It's really something very interesting and complex. So these panis stealing our light, it is happening to all of us, to the animal kingdom, to human beings. Every time there is an inner perception comes, they want it. Today I put on Facebook the whole passage from Life Divine, where Sri Aurobindo says how our lower members, mind, vital, and physical, steal the higher perception and hide it. It's they're beautifully described. We can't do otherwise yet, because we are not fully aware of that light outside. The outer being is not capable of holding on to it. So it needs to appropriate it. It holds it as a prisoner for itself, to aggrandize itself, to make itself more efficient. That's what we are doing. We are using the grace for the wrong purpose. But that is the way how we become more and more efficient in our avidya workings. Yeah? But there will be a time when this would not be needed, and both can be present. And yeah.
So, Vladimir, I have a question.
Yes.
If I may ask. But by the way, your talk today was just superb. But my question is about something that you actually covered yesterday. Is it okay if I can ask?
Yes, lovely. Yeah.
Okay. So this has to do with the division between the Vedas, the Samhita, and then the Brahmanas and the Aranyaks in between, and then the Upanishads. Now, what is interesting is that if you look at the history of Indian thought, apart from Sri Aurobindo, nobody covers the Vedas and the Upanishads together. Mm-hmm. If you look at Dayanand Saraswati, I mean, either people are ritualists and they focus on the Vedas and the Brahmanas and the Aranyaks, or they focus on knowledge and they focus on the Upanishads. Shankaracharya, for example, has no knowledge, or he demonstrates no knowledge of the Brahmanas, the Aranyaks, or even the Samhita, right? It's Upanishads and Gita all the way. Dayanand Saraswati, on the other hand, doesn't talk about the Upanishads at all. Even though Sri Aurobindo credits him with giving him the key, through Nirukta and the other works. Now, my question is, this to me is just mind-boggling that apart from Sri Aurobindo, nobody else in recorded Indian history looks at Samhitas and the Upanishads together. And even Sri Aurobindo doesn't really talk as much about the Brahmanas and the Aranyaks, really. It's mostly about the Vedas, primarily the Rig Veda and the Upanishads. Right. So I would like your observations on that. And secondly, the other thing which I find very surprising is that even though Upanishads are called the Vedanta, they don't actually quote too much of the Vedas, except for a few quotes here and there, that famous two birds in a tree hymn and so on, which are quoted occasionally. The Upanishads are really talking about a world that has no link with the Samhita text. So this is just, to me, mind-boggling. Not only is this something not commonly realized, but I would have thought thousands of people would have written about it. People have not even commented on it. So I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these nice observations. Yes, regarding the last one, Sri Aurobindo says actually that the major purpose of the Upanishadic rishis was not so much to comment on the Veda and to link and to justify the Vedic vision, though they refer to it as the supreme knowledge, supreme authority, all of the Upanishads. It's also an important point. But to build their own system, their own intuition, yes. So they are kind of rebuilding the whole vision of the Veda in their own fashion, in their own context, which is closer to our times. So they needed another language. That's why there is the shift from Indra to Manas, rather than, and Buddhi and Samkhya is adopted finally at the end. Yeah? And though it is pre-Sankhyaic, so it's the transition from the Veda to Samkhya. And in that sense, of course, Upanishads are independent. You're right. They are not totally linked to the Veda, though they take the inspiration from the Veda and they use the quotations from the Veda directly, everyone, Each Upanishad will use Rig Veda and others, all of them actually. But it is mainly a kind of authority they refer to, that look, we are from the same mindset or some lineage we are coming. But there was a huge gap in thousands of years in between, so it could not be easily bridged, or it's not the same tradition anymore, so to say, in terms of a format of explanation. But of course, in terms of the spirit and truth or the purpose of creation, it is still the same. Regarding Brahmanas, you're absolutely right that Sri Aurobindo does not make much on Brahmanas, does not write on Brahmanas. Here and there you see some remarks, and not very positive sometimes, saying that not everything is as it seems, because Brahmanas tried to apply it to the ritualistic context. And because of that, especially Taittiriya Brahmana, if you start reading it, you would be a little bit like, wow, what is all this about? Yeah? The great hymns are applied to some sacrificial events which are not even fitting there. Yeah? So, in that sense. But if we examine their stories, their mythology, and even ritualism from the symbolic point of view, I find them very inspirational. Yeah? Brahmanas for me was a great inspiration, truly speaking, and I'm very glad that I studied them thoroughly, especially Aitareya Brahmana and Taittiriya Brahmana, these two, and Shatapatha. Shatapatha was always my favorite because it's very easy to read, very easy language. Yeah? I don't need the dictionary to read Shatapatha Brahmana. Taittiriya is difficult, yeah. It's difficult language, everything is difficult there. Aitareya and Shatapatha are very easy to read for any Sanskrit scholar. And stories are amazing of Shunakshepa, all the explanations of the Rigvedic stories and rishis. By the way, the whole Shatapatha Brahmana becomes the foundation for all the Puranas. All the stories of Puranas are already in Shatapatha Brahmana.
But this is where I'm sorry to persist with this, Vladimir, but this is, to me, this is absolutely mind-boggling that, we have literally millions of pundits in India, but nobody has really tried to bridge these, nobody's tried to create these bridges. I mean, what you've just said, that the Shatapatha Brahmana, is the basis of stories of the Puranas. I have not seen that anywhere discussed. That
maybe not, yeah, because it's so rich. The literature is so rich that it's implied or it's understood, or I don't know how it is. They maybe don't speak about this openly because it's understood anyhow. So the same story of Vasishtha, of Shunakshepa, you will see it continuing in Mahabharata, in Puranas, Tantras. It will be growing in details of the stories which Puranas added to it, developed later. Yes.
Have you written anything about this, Vladimir, that you can share with us about the continuation between the Brahmanas and the Puranas and so on?
Truly speaking, not. Never thought of it, because it is so obvious that all the stories from Shatapatha Brahmana are in Puranas. Actually, it's one long, history of all the myths. These myths are growing, becoming more and more kind of elaborated in Puranas, and get new and new bodies and new events around it. It's like Mahabharata, story within the story within the story, and then reflection upon it. It's like many stories about the same story. And they are all very rich and very beautiful, and adding to it always some content to think of, to reflect upon our life. And it creates a very interesting environment for the inner being to live. That's India about. India lives in this mythological structure still.
Any observations on the Aranyaks? If people talk very little of the Brahmanas, Aranyaks almost none at all.
Yeah, Aranyakas are amazing in one regard. They are the transition from Brahmanas to the Upanishads, and you can see it there. They are already speaking about things in the metaphysical language. They already explain, it's like for the period of Anaprastha, a period of reflection, Svadhyaya, how to do Svadhyaya, how to read the text for oneself. All these myths are put already in the perspective of the metaphysics. There is the definite shift towards this language. And Upanishads are kind of moving away from mythology towards metaphysics. There are not many Aranyakas. There is only Taittiriya Aranyaka, which is very interesting, very big one, the biggest most probably, Aitareya Aranyaka, not many. So they are somehow not so visible. They were kind of in between. Brahmanas are huge, yes, and Upanishads is a big event. But in between those few Aranyakas, they are kind of...
There are about 8 or 9, I think, that are there.
Right.
Have been all published. And one last question. Sorry, I'm hogging the question.
No.
One last question. I was very intrigued by in your table that you had presented last time. You said that the 4 ashramas of life correspond to. So the Brahmacharya ashram is the Brahmana stage. Then and so on, and ultimately you call Vanprasth as the Shudra, the equivalent to the Shudra.
Sannyasa Shudra.
Sorry, the sannyas part. I mean, I don't know if you covered that last time, but that is something which is there a reference for that? No,
I didn't do. I just put these 4 because this is archetypal way of thinking. So we start with the brightest, the Satya Yuga, and end with Kali Yuga. This kind of diminishing or narrowing down the stream of consciousness to the extent that it is only focused. You can see it. It's of course it's not direct correspondence. There is no correspondence directly. Actually, it's even wrong to put this into the same table, but there is something there. There is some intuitive way of seeing or thinking. There's some truth in it. Or, for example, narrowing down the consciousness. Yes, the stream, which becomes more and more focused at the end of sannyasa, where you accept only the divine, or Shudra. Shudra is only acting as a totally surrendered being. So you would have that intuitive kind of sense, but very difficult to explain because our mind likes, obvious correspondence. Logical.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and observations. It was wonderful. I'm very glad that Shailendra is with us today also. We had an opportunity to work together he was the Vice Chancellor of our university, and he hired me to work there with him. It was the
best decision I made. So.
Yes, and it was very lovely to be
really,
together.
I never shared this with everybody, but it was really for my edification that I most wanted you there. So, and I remember our conversations late into the night. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being there. Yes, I never had any Vice Chancellor to discuss these topics, for they are all busy doing something, but not interested in this knowledge. Thank you for being there, and I hope everything is going well with your Maika.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. So we will stop here and continue next time. Yes.
I wasn't going to say anything significant at all. Just wanted to say it was a wonderful session. Very illuminating, and it's filling vast gaps in my knowledge. It's very, very beneficial. So thank you. And everyone, we meet again at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening, and for the third session. Until then, bye everyone.
Bye. Namaste.
Namaste.